Look around. We're one and the same. Same heart, same blood. Your training is in your blood, and my blood's boiling for a fight.
Coming up on the Take the Initiative podcast.
I dropped the probe droids because I found myself not needing the hand information.
I know I've sort of been mad at people for posting there, but now I'm mad at you guys for not posting there.
The controversy, yeah.
Hello, initiative takers. It's me, Rebel Trader.
I'm Nick the Bug.
And we're going to talk to you about May the 4th, Star Wars Unlimited.
Yes.
State of the game. And we're going to talk about whether or not the TTI League is the most competitive thing in the game right now. But that's later. How have you been doing, Nick? And how was your May 4th?
I've been doing really well. I finished another semester of school. I'm now home, which is really nice. And my May 4th was great. I took down a tournament. I haven't won a tournament this big in a long time, so it was really nice. It was fun. How was yours?
It was great, yeah. I went up to Portland to play, which was great. I played. I ended up going 4-2 and missing the cut on breakers. I finished 10th or something.
Oh,
it was
that hurt so bad.
Yeah. It did. But I wasn't mad. I had a great time. It was great to get out and play a big event again.
Yeah.
I don't know if we've podcasted since, but a couple months ago, I went up to Tacoma, Washington, and played in what was supposed to be a big event there, but it ended up being 12 people.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
That one wasn't. It didn't scratch the same itch, but this one really did. It was great to be there again. I saw a lot of old people from the area that played Destiny, and
that's awesome. That's
great
really
to see
cool.
those people again.
Sweet.
I had a lot of fun. So I played Iden Green, and you also played Iden, but a different color.
I did. I played Iden Red. That's so interesting. I didn't know you were on green.
Yeah. Yeah, I've been on the green one for a while. It was also the one I brought to the Tacoma event that I ended up making top 8 out of the top 12.
Out of 12? Yeah.
So not like
Where'd you finish at the Tacoma?
I lost in the top 8. But
okay, I gotcha.
I think I was 5th after Swiss.
Mm-hmm.
So I was 2-1. We played 3 rounds. But yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I played Iden Green again. I think it's really well positioned into a lot of things. At least
totally.
I don't think it's the best deck right now, but I think it has a good matchup into Boba. I think it has a good matchup into Sabine, and I think it has it. You can win into the harder control decks, although it's definitely harder.
Mm-hmm.
Palpatine is basically impossible, and that was one of
That's
my
an uphill battle for sure. Yeah.
I didn't face any Vader Blues, but I think it's winnable for Iden.
Okay.
So yeah, how'd the red version treat you?
The red version was great. So I wanted to play Iden Green. I usually play a different deck every week. That's just something that I do to try to keep my grasp on the meta and to sort of learn different play styles and different cards. So I wanted to play Iden Green, but I didn't have the Vaders for it, so I swapped to red just to test it. And I was feeling like it was a pretty decent deck, but it didn't have all the tools it needed. It wasn't beating anything really better than 50-50. So I put it away for a bit. And then I saw the Vader Blue list that took the 5K, and I was like, this is very similar to what I was trying to do with Iden, but you're taking Vader. And so then I just basically went back to the drawing board on the Iden list, and I felt like if I just made every single piece of the Vader list a little better, that I could take Iden and feel pretty good about it. So, swapping Vader for Iden gives you the heals against Sabine, which I think is technically Vader's hardest matchup. I dropped some of their lower cost units, like the 1-drop Stormtrooper. Feels fine in Vader, feels even worse in Iden, so I'm not playing that. I dropped the probe droids because I found myself not needing the hand information and not needing the body. So it's all removal. I maxed out the deck list in terms of removal. Just a couple of Sentinel units and then Palpatine and Avenger at the very end. And I felt pretty good about it. I think theoretically, aggro is Iden's toughest matchup, but I faced 3 Sabines in the top 8, top 4, and the final. And I 2-1 to the Sabine yellow, and then 2-0 both the Sabine greens.
Wow.
So I felt pretty good about it. Yeah.
Yeah. I think Sabine is like, for Iden Green is theoretically hard, but I think she's actually favored into it. I think it's probably at least 60% win rate for the Iden Green deck. The red I think would struggle more, but your results seem to suggest otherwise.
Yeah. The red theoretically struggles more. Like the red one is so good into Boba, for example, because you just don't play any units, and then they can never get their ability off. It's great into other control because you're just doing even more control, and you can usually go over the top of them. But then the Sabine and the Leia are really tough matchups for the red in theory. But the Sentinels, the Child Sins help a lot. I run 3 copies of main deck Vigilance, which the heal 5 is super helpful into the aggro, and then I also run two copies of main deck Restock for the control mirror, and so then even those games are not a challenge.
Yeah. I had restocks on the side on mine, but I think it might be wise to bring at least one into the main, because it is really hard to win those control mirrors without.
It is, and then once you have the restock, it's tough to lose, honestly. So I was running 2 in the main and 1 in the side because it felt in my testing like whoever had the most vigilance wins until you max, and then whoever has the most restock wins until you max in terms of the control. Because if you get your restocks and your vigilances vigilanced, then you're screwed.
And that's why I think you definitely should be running 2 restocks. Like there are some people that think you can only run 1, but
I think that's
milled, you're done.
That's a start, but it gets discarded and then you're screwed, and that's going to happen, at least once in your best of 3. And then if you didn't have it in your main in the first game, then now you've lost 2.
Yeah. But yeah, I also ran 3 Vigilance. I had to borrow 2 from Kylus Bren from Artificery, so shout out to him.
Shout out Artificery.
But yeah, they also had a stream of the whole Portland event, so you can go back and watch. I never got on stream.
That's okay. Heck yeah, I'll watch it.
So other stuff that won today, or not today, we're recording after, but other stuff that won this weekend. I sort of want to talk about it. I saw a lot of Hans winning. I saw a lot of Sabines. I didn't see a ton of Boba winning. Or I think there was a mono Boba one, but not a ton of Boba Green. Let me see. I have a spreadsheet up. This one doesn't have the winner picked out. This one's Sabine, Boba Green actually. Apparently Iden Green, Boba Yellow, Leia, Sabine, and Han in a top 4 split. It looks like Sabine. This one doesn't have a winner picked out. This was Han and Portland.
I think this is a good talking point in and of itself. Is this game feels so balanced right now?
Yeah.
I remember when we were talking about Boba, feeling like he was just unbeatable, and like, what are you going to do about Boba? And now he's still winning sometimes, but he doesn't ever feel like the big bad he used to. And I'm not sure that a new one has replaced him. Like, I'm not even sure if we've solved this meta yet, which feels so cool.
Yeah, it's great. You can take there were like a bunch of crazy things that made like top 8 that didn't even win. Like there was a Cassian green deck that won. I think there was a Cassian yellow that also made top 8.
There was a Palpatine yellow that was just in the top 8 at my tournament. Like,
yeah, wow.
So cool.
There was a mono Jin at Malak's tournament.
That's awesome.
So dude, it was like, I think Iden Blue made the top cut at the Richmond 4K.
Yeah, I saw that one. And that deck is one that I've been looking at because you don't lose that much giving up red. You lose more giving up green. But going from my version to blue, you don't lose that much. So I've been looking at that too. For the turn 3 vigilance rather than the turn 5.
Yeah, playing vigilance for 4 just seems really, really good.
It feels so good. And vigilance is one of those cards that originally I did not see playing it at 6. It just felt rough. And I've really come around on it, specifically in builds where you just don't play any units because you have the resources and it just has high impact.
Yeah. I ran it in like an Iden list in one of our league top cuts a few months ago. and I didn't like it that much, but it never really came up in my games. I was like, I threw it in there because I was like, I sort of want to see how this works, and it never really came up. But and I didn't think about it that much after. But
Yeah, it feels really
great,
impactful right now with so much Sabine and Leia being, dropping tons of 3-cost, 3 health units. Yeah.
But yeah, so a lot of people have been saying there's like sort of 5 pillars of the meta. I think that's basically true. It's like you have like the aggro decks like Sabine, the like sort of tempo decks like Churret, and like the yellow Boba deck. Then there's like mid range, which is like Boba and Han, and then there's like the soft control of like Iden Green, and then there's like the hard control of like Vader Blue, Iden Red.
Yeah, absolutely.
Those things. So I think like you can play pretty much any deck from those like 5 categories and like have a shot because everything's out there. And yeah,
I saw Churrets in my top 8 too. Like it's cool. There's so much variety. I almost played Han Green. I think that deck, like Iden, has very few bad matchups, and that's really what I was aiming for. I wanted as few bad matchups as possible, and to feel like whatever I was facing, I had answers for it in my hand. And control just sort of automatically, by definition, has answers for everything. But Han also feels like it has a lot of answers, being able to just go over the top of whatever you're playing against.
Yep. Yeah, the Han deck won the Portland event. It also won last season's league that we run.
It did.
So, and it's won a couple tournaments all over. So it's
what's interesting about Han too is there's lots of different lists. I know one that was in the top 8 of a big event here runs R2 and 3PO and Ezra. And then lots of lists run Mothma in place of that. And there's just lots of variety in those lists still. I think Han is still unsolved, which is kind of interesting.
Yeah. One of my losses at the Portland event was against a Han Blue deck. And it was like, it was insane. Okay.
Yeah.
He was running a bunch of out of aspect cards. He was on like Force Throw, Bodhi, For a Cause I Believe in, Power of the Dark Side.
No way.
It's just so many like random out of aspect cards that just do like that just do crazy things.
That are just good, yeah.
Yeah. And For a Cause seems like it was sort of an oxymoron, but like what he would do is basically like resource them, and he would play Lando also, and then just pick up the For a Causes that he resourced earlier in the game.
Interesting.
So it was just really insane. I had no idea how to play against it. And
I was going to say, do you think
that's... Him, but, yeah.
Do you think that's the type of deck that's good because it comes out of left field and is surprising, or do you think it actually has legs? Like if it were to become meta?
I mean, I don't know if that version specifically could become meta. Like I think he ended up finishing 3-3. So
okay, sure.
Yeah. But I do think Han Blue in general is really good. And
I agree. We had one at my tournament as well that felt good.
It's been like underplayed at the top levels, but it's definitely something there.
I think people feel like you're missing out on green or red, but like I think there was some chat in the main Discord today about Luke being the best unit in set 1, and I think that's arguably true. So getting him out 2 turns early feels great.
Yep, he's definitely really good. He kills something on play, and then he swings for a lot, and he's really hard to kill. Especially like
it's a 9 damage swing every time he swings.
If you're playing the security complex, you can give him a shield, and that makes him really hard to kill.
Jeepers. Yeah, I didn't even think about that. That's awesome.
Yeah. But yeah, there's like also like the Luke leader deck is also coming up. There was one of them made top 8 at Portland. And I think
it didn't make the top cut in my tournament, but I did play against a Luke Green in my event. And they were some of the closest games I had all day. He was actually running Vigilance as well. So it felt like he was able to go toe-to-toe with control that way.
But yeah. At the Tacoma event a few months ago, like I lost like my only loss in Swiss and my loss in the top 8 were to a Luke player. So
wow, interesting. That's so cool.
It has a lot of good matchups and do a lot of things. So
yeah, do you want to talk a little bit about Boba's placement right now?
Yeah. There's there's like two really good boba decks that have been going around, and there's like the green one and the yellow one. Bobby Sapphire from KTOD won a 1K with the yellow version, which I think the yellow version is great.
Yeah.
And it's, people always talk about the green when they talk about boba, but they forget the yellow and how strong that 4 resource cunning is.
Right. Yeah. The green one has, I think, theoretically a higher ceiling, but the yellow one has more options to shut down an opponent. I think it's got better odds into more of the field.
That's interesting. Yeah. Yeah, the yellow one is definitely more aggressive. Like,
Yeah.
you're often using the cunnings to get +4, which is really strong.
And then just swing for a bunch. Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. Like, Boba feels so high value. Like, he can just play so many resources worth of stuff so much faster than anything else. But also, there's so much that just shuts him down. Like, I played against a Boba this weekend, and it was the easiest match of my event. Like, control when you just play no units feels so good into it. There's just nothing they can do.
Yeah, I think it's pretty close to free for Iden, like no matter what build of her, both the red and the green. So yeah, I certainly don't think Boba. There was like a tournament a long time ago that was like the top 8 were all Boba greens.
Right, the top 16 even was like 15 Boba greens, and it was like, no way. Wow. Yeah.
But yeah, people just hadn't figured out how to play against it, but there are definitely ways to play against it.
Right. I think also that the deck sort of built itself in a lot of ways. And I think that one was optimized really fast, whereas nothing else felt optimized until very recently.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's still like a good play. Like, it beats Sabine, which seems to be pretty popular right now.
It does beat Sabine, and I think Sabine is also very well positioned in this meta. Like Sabine feels pretty good into Han, which Han doesn't have a lot of bad matchups. So I don't know. It's very, very rock paper scissors.
Yeah, I almost swerved to Sabine. Sorry, at the last for my tournament, because
I don't think that would have been a bad call.
It wouldn't have been. Yeah, I think my matchups would have gone mostly the same way.
Yeah.
So yeah. But I mean, even that's the other thing that's great about this meta is that sometimes you can win your bad matchups. Like, people think that Sabine is a free win into Palp, right? But in the top 8 of the Portland event, there was a Palp player that beat a Sabine player.
That's so cool. Yeah. Our event had the Palp Yellow beat Leia in the top 8 to go to the top 4, then lost to Sabine. But it felt like miraculous, but it was really cool to see.
Was the yellow version running sneak attack?
It was. I don't recall what they were sneaking in, but because I didn't get to play against it.
There's a version of that deck that plays like sneak attack, devastator, and Mahdi, and tries to like.
Oh my god, that's awesome! That's so cool. Win in 1 turn.
Yeah.
2 turns. That's so cool. Wow. Neat.
Yeah. So what do you think the meta is gonna be like next weekend?
It's a really good question because I expected a lot more control this weekend than I think we saw. I think after the 5K, I expected a lot of Vader Blue, and there was a little bit, but it tended to be the players that didn't have as much experience, and I think they didn't do as well because it can be a very tough deck to pilot, and they just picked it up because it had just one event. So I do wonder if maybe we'll see more of it next week as more experienced players get more reps on it. I also expect to keep seeing more and more Han. I think Han has virtually no bad matchups. You can, maybe the worst one is Boba, but you can usually win that one with a resupply. So I expect to see more and more Han.
How do you think the Han does into the Vader and I guess like the Iden Red?
Generally speaking, it's the most 50-50 match I've found. I was trying to decide between the two of them, and I was going to pick the one that had the better matchup into the other. And the match just feels so 50-50. It's very draw dependent. It's very dependent on if the Han player gets U-Wing and if the control player gets Super Laser Blast. But in general, Han is decent because he can outvalue the Iden player. If you can get multiple units, then Vader Blue or the Iden Green or Red really struggles to keep the board clean until 8 resources, and usually Han can win before then. So yeah, I think that's a very skill dependent matchup too. Han takes a lot of skill to play and a lot of reps that I think people are starting to get in with him.
Yeah, I think Han is a really great choice for anyone. It also takes a lot of skill to play. Like you have to know what to resource with Han, when to do it, what to discard.
Right. It can be very challenging, and a lot of times the better decision is actually not to resource with Han, and that feels like you're giving up a leader ability, and it's weird.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's.
I see that. Sorry, go ahead.
I think it's been great to see that the meta has, not only is it so diverse, but it's become more diverse over time. Like a few weeks ago, we were talking about like, the meta is just Boba, Iden, and Sabine, and now it's so much more than that, and you can play so.
It's just exploded. It's really really cool.
Yeah.
It's so sick. Did I see that like 25% of the TTI top cut is Han Green?
It's 3 out of 16. I have the stats up here. Cool. So we have 3 Boba Greens, 3 Han Greens, 2 Sabine Yellow, and then 1 each of Sabine Green, Boba Blue, Thrawn Blue, Tarkin Green, Palp Red, Chirrut Red, Luke Green, and Krennic Green. So it's I think 7 unique decks. 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, wow, that's so cool.
7, and then 2 3s and 1 2.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
Notable lack of control.
Yeah.
Interesting. It's cool.
Yeah, I think people don't like playing those like hard control decks.
Sure, I think that's fair. Yeah. I love playing them, but
I do.
I like a high skill matchup, and it feels like when you sit down with control, you force your opponent to play high skill on your level.
Yeah. Some of the most fun games I've had in the past few weeks there's another player at my locals who has been like big into Iden Red and Vader Blue and stuff. And every time we play, it's like it goes on for forever, and it takes a lot of time.
But every decision feels like it matters.
Every decision matters,
yeah.
But yeah, I'm excited to see this Boba Blue deck. It's brought by the player that won the 5K with Vader Green or Vader Blue. Sorry,
Vader Blue. Yeah, that's really exciting. That's so cool.
Yeah. I'm excited to see how that does.
Yeah, he's a very smart guy, and he definitely knows what he's doing. So I'm excited to see those streams.
Yeah. So, like, while we're talking about the league, do you want to just talk about the discourse that's been going on?
The controversy, yeah.
I understand you haven't been following it as much because you've been busy, but obviously,
grad school's been kicking my butt, but I'm free now, so.
So, would you say that the TTI League is the most competitive thing going on in Unlimited right now?
That is such a hard question to answer, and I did see Thork's video where he claimed that. I don't know. I think I understand the argument because any other event, you're sort of locked by the locale. Like, can the best players in the world travel to this event? Maybe, maybe not. Whereas, the TTI League is available to everyone. But there are people who don't play on TTS. There are people who only play in locals. And so there are players in the world who are super competitive and who are great players, and we'll have no idea until we meet them at Worlds or something like that. So maybe it's the most competitive event right now, but it certainly won't remain that way.
Interesting. I don't think it is. Which, I mean, I know I'm the person that runs it, and I do think there is a level of competition, but I don't think it's the most competitive thing right now.
Okay. What would you say is the most competitive?
Well, I think the most competitive games are not being played in tournaments right now. I think they're being played by people doing testing.
I think that's fair. I think that's a really interesting take.
But I think like any like in-person tournament that's sufficiently large is probably going to be like more competitive, but that sort of hinges on like your definition of competitive. Because I do think there is a high level of play in the TTI League, even though there's nothing at stake. We're just playing for prestige, which is worth exactly as much as you want it to be worth.
Yeah. And different amounts to different people. Yeah.
Yeah, and like we have like lots of good players from around the world, and I think like if you were going to make an argument that it's the most competitive thing, that's what you would point to, is that we have people from all over the world playing in this.
Yeah.
But there's also, I think, a lot of really good players that, like you said, aren't going to be playing on TTS, and just aren't going to be playing in like a league that has no prizes.
Right. Exactly.
So I think like that sort of makes it inherently less competitive.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Not to say that it's not competitive at all. I think it is, but I don't think it can be the most competitive thing if there's no prizes to play for, and if there's it's also like the structure of it is set up so that you don't have to lock a deck before you go into the like pre Top Cut stage. So people play decks in Top Cut that are like weird choices that wouldn't necessarily make it through a real Swiss tournament.
That there's definitely an argument for that. Like, first of all, the Swiss rounds, there's some level of incentive to test and to make bold choices, because you can change your deck next round, right? Like you can do whatever you like, and you're not locked in. Whereas in the Top Cut at this event, you can see like who your opponents are going to be. You can almost metagame that, and you're going to have to play 4 games to make it to first place, rather than a Swiss round where a certain deck might struggle more.
Yeah, and I don't want to make. I like the idea of having a league where you can change your deck every round. I don't want to make people lock it in.
I agree.
But I do think that there's a trade-off in that you can't really say that the Top Cut is as competitive if the decks that people are playing there didn't like make it there the same way they would in a real life.
Absolutely. Sure. Like the top 16, those are just decks that somebody made. It wasn't, it was the player, but not the deck.
Yeah. And again, like, I don't think that's wrong. And I do think people do play competitively, even,
absolutely. And I think it's cool that people value it highly. I think it's a great opportunity for players, especially if you don't have a great local scene, or if the people in your local scene are not as invested in competitive play as you are.
Yeah. Or if you're an American and you want to play against good Europeans, like they're
some of the European players are so good.
It is like, I think this is the only league, at least it's certainly the largest that is like global in scope. And so I think that's great. I think that's really valuable.
Yeah, absolutely. Super valuable.
Yeah. And like, again, like prizing is another thing, like, and we've stayed away from doing that because we don't want to charge people for it. I think it's great to have something like this that's free. And we don't really want to get like FFG mad at us by involving money. But yeah, I mean, I think the TTI League is a great place to go if you're looking to get good games in against other good players. I don't think it's the most competitive thing ever. I think for a while it probably was, like before release, but
sure. It was the only place to go.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. That makes total sense.
Yeah. Let's see. Is there anything else you want to talk about? You want to talk about spoilers at all?
Sure. Let me pull them up. Some of them look really exciting.
Yeah. I saw like all the Bad Batch stuff, and I want to know what you think about that, because I'm really excited for the Bad Batch stuff.
I am too.
Some of it sort of seems all over the place, and
how
good it is.
I mean, we can start with the leader, the Bad Batch leader, Hunter. Like, I've been super excited since they announced it to play a Bad Batch deck. I love that show.
Yeah.
It might be my favorite Star Wars show because it feels like the Clone Wars but focused, which I just love. But Hunter doesn't feel great. he maybe feels bad. So, obviously we haven't seen the whole set, and so it's super likely to change. But the ability feels like a worse draw ability. It feels worse than Cassian, and Cassian's already not seeing a lot of play.
Yeah, I mean, I think like I think there's got to be something that combos with it, and
Sure.
when there is, I'm sure we'll change our tune. But like right now, coming out on 7 is like a big ask because you have to wait
Yes.
forever to do that. He doesn't like he's just a big guy when he comes out. Basically, like he doesn't
Right.
really change much about the game state.
He comes out the same round as Vader, but he doesn't do as much as Vader.
Yeah.
I think I was talking to a buddy of mine, and there's an argument that, like, let's say there was a 7-cost Hunter unit. Like, you could play that card down as a resource round 1 and not worry about it until Hunter comes out and then get it back. Like, that's kind of interesting.
Yeah.
But even then, like, are you playing a leader just for that one other leader card? Like, I don't know. It feels kind of strange.
Yeah. I do sort of like I like the theme that it plays with like unique units.
Absolutely.
Because that's sort of like the thing is that they're all like a team, and so it's all made up of unique units. And
right, exactly. I think that's sort of the premise of the shows centered around the clones, is that they're more unique than meets the eye. I think that's really cool from a theme perspective.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I think I'm withholding judgment till we see like what other stuff combos with him, but he looks like okay at best.
Yeah, that's my
honest.
feeling as well. Yeah.
But
I think there are some members of the Bad Batch that feel great. Like Tech, for example, seems amazing. He's the one that's 3 cost 2/5, and then every friendly resource gains smuggle. That feels just incredible.
Yeah, have we seen like a 3 cost 2/5 yet?
I mean, no. I mean, Boba's 3 cost and he's 3/5, so it's not an unprecedented level of stats, but it feels pretty good. Like he's gonna be sticking around, or he's gonna trade multiple units. And I'm interested too if we get a leader that decreases the cost of smuggle cards.
Yeah.
Then, every one of your resources can be smuggled for just +1 on its original cost, and that just feels really good.
Yeah.
Suddenly your hand is enormous.
And he sort of combos with Hunter, right? Because if you're like getting new resources into your row with Hunter, then he can maybe play him because he gives them smuggle. So
you're never devastated about the cards that get in there. Yeah.
I think Echo looks really good, actually.
I agree. Echo looks great.
Like maybe
and definitely combos.
Oh yeah, definitely. But like maybe he like misses sometimes, but I think usually he is gonna have a big impact on the board.
Sure. I mean, yeah. Part of whether or not you miss is shaped by you, right? Like it's the same as Child Sin. For a long time, I was interested in playing Child Sin, but I felt like I never had enough blue cards in my hand for it to matter. But once you get Child Sin in your hand, suddenly you start resourcing differently. You resource the off-color cards, and you keep more blues around. And you can shape the way you play this guy. It doesn't just happen. And that 2 experience for free on a 4/4 Restore 2 guy feels fantastic.
Yeah. Well, I'm sort of hoping for like a base or maybe a leader that lets you play extra copies of unique units, or maybe of like unique clones, maybe.
That would be kind of fun.
Like,
I do hope we get a clone themed base. That would make me happy.
Yeah, Camino or something.
Yeah.
Then we have Omega, who lets you basically play clone tribal by like bringing in like all the clones from all the aspects, which I think is crazy.
Kind of cool, but it definitely feels a little weird because she's got 2 health. Like if this is central to your strategy, you're gonna struggle to keep her on the board.
Yeah.
So I don't know. That feels like a big ask to me. To make her sort of a keystone part of your clone deck.
Yeah. I do think she's going to get better with time and
Sure.
potentially be part of like combo things. Because in set 3, I bet we're going to
Absolutely.
get a lot more clones.
I expect so, yeah.
I think like there's probably going to be decks that play like her on like a later turn. We have a bunch of resources, and
Absolutely.
maybe you have a sentinel down that can protect her. So
Sure. And you know, she is also a clone search. So, you know, maybe you have a great clone unit, a huge 7 cost Captain Rex or something that you're really invested in getting late game. Um, and she'll help with that as well.
yeah. And then Wrecker. Wrecker has been, I think, the most talked about one.
Wrecker feels like the best one right now.
Yeah, like he feels like Steadfast Battalion, but
Maybe a little better. Yeah.
maybe a little better. He's hero, which means he for in aggro decks he counts for your 4 costs, I believe in, which is
Right.
that matters.
Yeah, I think the reason Wrecker feels like the best one right now is because we can see him fitting immediately in existing decks, whereas the others maybe not so much. So I do expect the others to get better as more cards are revealed. You know, as always, we're reviewing spoilers before the set is revealed. But Wrecker feels like he would have immediate utility in our set right now,
Yeah,
which is cool.
yeah. What do you think about some of the new mechanics that they're releasing, like capture and bounty?
I think the new mechanics are cool. I am nervous to have so many new mechanics in one set. Smuggle in particular feels like it's going to be logistically challenging. So I'm hesitant to get excited about having it in a set that also has 2 other new mechanics. But FFG has done such an incredible job managing this game so far. So I trust the process. I'm excited.
Yeah. Yeah, I really like the bounty theme. Like
Yes.
it's so I mean you and I both played the 4 alarm deck a lot in
Yes.
Destiny.
We sure did.
So yeah, I love the idea of like putting bounties on my opponent's stuff, but it's
Yeah.
also like cool the stuff we've seen already that it is basically like you have like an overstated unit that has a bounty on it, which makes it
It's
worse.
super interesting.
Yeah,
But one of the things that I find especially interesting about it is like you know, a lot of those overstated units are cheaper, like 1 or 2 cost. But it might be interesting to play those units later in the game when those bounties matter less and when stats matter more. Like you need closers at the end of your game. Let's play, you know, 3 overstated units with a bounty. Sure, you can draw cards, but does it matter anymore? I think that's interesting.
yeah. I think the capture stuff is. Sorry. I think the capture stuff looks really interesting.
Capture stuff does look interesting.
It's like a new way to remove things, which is cool.
Yeah, and it is potentially cheaper because there's a downside, right? Like I saw somebody in the larger Discord suggesting capturing an Avenger with your X-wing, which like you totally could do, but also you know when that X-wing gets defeated, an Avenger comes back. So I think it's super interesting as a way to shut down a game plan for just enough time to win the game, or you know for just enough time to make a comeback or to stabilize.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's great. I think
I also
Smuggle
think
is also
both-
really interesting. Oh, sorry.
Smuggle looks brilliant. I was just gonna say I think both mechanics are also really cool from a theming and flavor perspective. Like looking at Dr. Evazan, it's just so funny to read that card from top to bottom. It's like 2 cost, 3/3, yes, shielded, oh 12 resources, no.
Yeah. I remember there was, I think it was in the RH era, but there was a Destiny version of Evazan that basically just said this guy is always treated as if he has 12 bounties on him.
Yes, that's so funny.
So, yeah. Yeah, Evazan is another thing. He's one of the ones that people have been talking about a lot because he's just those stats are real good.
Yeah, I think he's going to be basically a shoo-in for yellow decks.
Yeah.
Do you have an opinion on him? I think I've seen people say, "Oh, I will never play him," and I can understand that sentiment. But
like he's
What'd you say?
amazing. I think he's amazing.
yeah, I agree.
Yeah. Like he's a cross between like Crafty Smuggler and Battlefield Marine, which are
Right.
two highly played 2-drops. So
Already
I think
fantastic. Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
yeah. I think the smuggle stuff is really interesting. I really like to see where it goes. I like that it basically lets you have, extra stuff in your like basically like a second hand kind of.
Yeah, it's super interesting. I'm excited to see how it works logistically. Like, I think your opponent can gain so much information from you just being like, hang on, I'm going to look at my resources again.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, the whole mechanic looks just fascinating from a theming perspective and from a gameplay perspective. I think it's brilliant.
Yeah. And I love to see like the art for the set. Like
Yes.
the boxes are like purple. I think that suits it perfectly. It looks
Yeah, doesn't it? So fun.
um
Um,
yeah.
yeah, it just the whole set looks really great so far. I'm just very, very excited to get more Unlimited because I've just been having a blast with this game.
Yeah, no. I can't believe like we're getting another set soon. Like it feels like
I know it feels like this meta is so
we're not done
unsolved
with the
still.
first one. Like I could play
No.
this for like a year and there'd still be stuff new to find.
Yeah, it definitely feels that way, which is, I think, a sign of a really great game.
Yeah.
Do you have a favorite card that's been spoiled so far?
Ooh, that's tough. I might have to go with Echo.
Okay. Yeah, I think he's quite good. I'm looking back through. I'm really
The Pike
liking.
Sentinel also. That's nice.
Yeah, Pike Sentinel's great. I'm really, really liking the Clone Deserter.
Oh yeah.
Feels really good for one drop. And the other one I'm really liking is Ruthlessness. That's the one cost upgrade.
Oh yeah.
I'm really excited about this upgrade theming in these Mandalorian decks, and I hope that there isn't just too much upgrade hate in the game for it to matter.
Yeah.
Because stuff like Ruthlessness feels so good.
Yeah. I'm looking back at the spoiler channel, and there's so many like art previews of like stuff we haven't seen yet. I'm like, oh, I can't wait
Yes.
to see what this does.
Yeah, it just looks so good. There's a lot of good art in the set so far too.
Yeah. Well, let's see. I think we only had like one question in the podcast questions channel.
All right.
I know I've like sort of been like mad at people for posting there, but now I'm mad at you guys for not posting there. Post more in the
It's
questions
impossible
channel.
to please, aren't you?
So yeah, someone asked how much back end work does running the TTI League take, and the answer is like not a ton. Like I mean, it's not nothing, and I'm pretty much doing like something small every day, even if it's just telling someone they need to submit the form to register. But like most of it is set up to be automated, which is great. So I basically like every first of the month I have to like set up the new season, and that's usually the bulk of the work I do. But yeah, it's great. It's very rewarding. Love to see people playing. We had over 100 people play last month, and we're at like 80 right now. So yeah,
It's awesome. Well, from those of us that do not do the back end work, we appreciate you, and we appreciate the space that you provide for the most competitive play in Unlimited history.
So speaking of, like you said, you were gonna play this month.
I think I'm going to. I'm home and I have a little bit more free time, so I'm excited to dive in. It will be my first time playing the league.
Yeah,
So I'm
we'd
excited.
love to have you. Let's see. Any closing thoughts before we move on?
I think that's it. Sign up for the league, take the initiative, and play Control.
Yeah, control forever. All right. See you guys later.